And in terms of the AFC, my gosh, I have never in my 18 years of being an NFL Network, NFL only guy on that spot. I don't recall ever, even in my days in SportsCenter, looking up week after Thanksgiving and seeing as wide open a race in a conference. I don't recall anything like this. I'm sure there are stats organizations and network stat research departments that can look this up, I guess. But going into tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Patriots and the Bills, you have got a major, huge top of the conference amount of gridlock. Patriots lead it right now because of tie breaks, but there are 4 8-4 teams sitting at the top of the conference. And if the Patriots win tonight, they become the first 9-win team in the AFC. If the Bills win tonight, then we'll still have a 4-way tie atop the conference at 8-4, and the Patriots will go into their bye week a half game behind all of that. And the Bills are currently atop the wild card at 7-4, and the Chargers are 7-5. They just beat the Bengals at 7-5, and the latest example of who the hell are the Bengals and when can we trust them, blowing out the Steelers and then following it up with that loss. They got blown out by the Browns. They blow out the Steelers before, and they lose to the Jets. You know, I don't know. They've swept the Steelers, and then they get smoked by the Chargers, who are very inconsistent themselves. Broncos team beats the Chargers, and then they go into Kansas City last night and had opportunities, but Kansas City still pulled it out. As Kansas City's defense has given up a grand total in their last 7 games, 26 second-half points. How about that for Kansas City defense that gave up 26 points in a quarter, I'm sure, at one point this year? In their last 7 second halves, you could do the math. That's a little bit better than a field goal after halftime. So when the Kansas City offense finally stops having balls that get thrown a little bit too high, or those that are thrown perfectly that get dropped, or when they finally put together a game like we're used to seeing, look out. Kansas City can emerge from this. Tennessee, when they're healthy, terrific, but they're not healthy enough. Who knows? Anybody on that screen can win it. And then your Steelers. They tie the Lions. They come here to Los Angeles and have a game in which everything's working on offense. And the defense, you say, well, there's no T.J. Watt. Well, there's no Minkah Fitzpatrick. Last week, they're back, right? And they get smoked by the Bengals. And then they come back in a game against the Ravens, and they play, I mean, they bent. Boy, did they bend. They kept bending and bending and bending and bending and then didn't break. As Lamar threw another terrible interception in the end zone, right? In the first half of that game. And then the Steelers just don't break. And once again, I guess that's what they've done all year long is they bend and they bend and they bend and they bend. And then Big Ben comes in, throws 2 touchdowns, and Deontay Johnson goes for 100. And T.J. Watt, 6 days after getting diagnosed with COVID, is able to come back. He passes all the protocols. He's got 3.5 sacks and a forced fumble in that game.
Yeah.
He's on pace to have 20 this year. So just when you think T.J. Watt can't be a defensive player of the year this year, well, they're 6-5-1, and they're taking on a Vikings team that lost to the Lions in a couple days. They're still in the mix. You can't sit here and say the Steelers have no shot to make the playoffs when they're sitting right there at 6-5-1, a half game behind everybody else. And they can play defense like that. And if they can finally run the ball and get Big Ben moving down the field against the Ravens team that has to take on the Browns. How great was this? Put that AFC up. Standings up one more time, if you don't mind, Mr. Hoskins. What a bye week for the Browns, huh? What a bye week for the Browns sitting there at 6-6. The Raiders lose at home to fall to 6-6. Okay. The Broncos lose to fall to back to 6-6. The Bengals sitting right in front of them at 7-5. And guess what? The Browns have already beaten the Bengals. If they sweep the Bengals, they'd have the tiebreak over them. That's an absolute path to the wild card basket for the Browns right there. And then the Ravens lose. They're just 2 games behind them. If they come off the bye week and beat a Ravens team that looks like going to be without Marlon Humphrey now, the Ravens went for 2, not only because they love analytics, as Mike Tomlin kind of pointed out with his tongue firmly planted in cheek in his post-game press conference last night, but John Harbaugh said they were out of corners. So if the Ravens are out of corners and they were already out of running backs and they try to come from that, is the AFC North open still for them?
Yeah.
I mean, the Bengals have already beaten them. The Bengals could sweep. Think about this. This is how crazy the Bengals season is. The Bengals could sweep the Ravens. They've already swept the Steelers. And they could still not make the playoffs because the Browns could sweep them.
Wow.
That's how it could go either way. They could easily win this division, the Bengals. And they could easily miss the playoffs.
Right.
The Chargers sitting there at 7-5. They've already beaten the Chiefs. They play the Chiefs on a Thursday night short week at home next week. They could win the division, or they could miss the playoffs. The Bills tonight. They could easily, with a win tonight, be on their way to winning the division. And they could also miss the playoffs. Because anybody could come from the sniffing it right now and go on a run, including the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. I've never seen a conference like this. I have not. It is so wide open. NFC's more top-heavy. They also have, more surefire Hall of Fame quarterbacks sitting in there. But come on, man, the AFC, you got to have your head on a swivel, and the New England Patriots may be the most trustworthy, gotta see it, going to see it team out there. That's what makes tonight's Monday Nighter so crucial in a game in Buffalo where there is seemingly the old 100% chance of rain, gusty winds, 30 degrees, dreadful weather, which means, Mike Del Tufo, we are going to have your first weather report of the season.
Hey. I'm ready to roll, Rich.
You should be. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.